to Public Global. This is Neelu Vyas. Now, Donald Trump has changed the world order completely, and this is changing the dynamics of the domestic politics as well, not only in India, but elsewhere around the world. Now, let's talk about India. How are the equations changing here? For example, of late, we saw Prime Minister Narendra Modi at the Vantara Wildlife Sanctuary mingling with the family members of the Ambanis. Now, is Modi now forced to give up on Gautam Adani and develop proximity with the owners of the Reliance? What could be the reasons? We'll try and find out all of this. Joining me now this evening is Siddharth Sharma, who's an independent media analyst. Thank you so much, Siddharth, for joining. And Donald Trump seems to have changed the world order completely. But the way it is now playing out in our country, that is India, do you see these equations changing? Say, for example, Prime Minister Narendra Modi was seen at the Vantara Wildlife Sanctuary, developing proximity. Not that he wasn't close with the Reliance, but now to mingle with the family members, visiting their sanctuary, even though it is so controversial, we'll come to that later. But does it go to show that Prime Minister Modi has given up on Gautam Adani and now he's trying to build new equations with the Ambanis?
I think the Prime Minister, Mr. Modi's hand have been forced, especially after his visit, the summit with Mr. Trump recently, around 2 weeks ago. I'll try to explain it in a way in which a very famous politician of India said that, "Aap chronology samajhiye." The chronology is this: in the 1990s, for the first time, the world accepted that there is going to be global warming. That was the Rio de Janeiro Earth Summit, in which the world accepted that there is going to be global warming, and the world needs to shift from fossil fuel to renewable energy. That is why just around 5 7 years later, India also went for a civil nuclear energy deal with the United States. That was also a shift from fossil fuel to renewable energy. Now we all of us know that Adani's most of the companies, most of the investments are in green energy. There's a Adani is into hydrogen, Adani is into green energy like solar. In fact, in Kutch, just 1 kilometer away from the India-Pakistan border in the run of Kutch, Adani has put up the world's biggest solar power plant. So Adani is into green energy. We know that. Now, the same has continued just 1 year ago when there was a G20 summit in Delhi. The Indian Prime Minister, in fact, had promised that India will go for three times. India will increase its renewable energy consumption by threefold. And the G20 summit also, the joint declaration also talked about renewable energy. So till last year, till the G20 summit in Delhi last year, everything was shifting towards renewable energy, and Adani was the biggest investor in India in renewable energy sources. Now, suddenly, what happened was America chose Trump, and the new Trump administration has totally dumped the what do you say climate accords. In fact, it has even walked out of the Paris Climate Accord. So Trump is totally into fossil fuels to the extent now that in America there is something called as fracking. That is, if you are a farmer and by chance, by luck, in your farmland you find an oil beneath your field. Earlier, before this, you did not have the right to pull out that oil and use for yourself. That is called as fracking. But Trump administration has now allowed it. Trump administration has totally walked out of the renewable energy sector and investing heavily into fossil fuel, that is petroleum. And that is why when Narendra Modi and Mr. Donald Trump met in the White House 15 20 days ago, when Mr. Modi had gone to visit him, in the 12th paragraph of the 33 paragraph joint declaration between USA and India, the statement clearly says that in USA is going to be India's biggest petroleum supplier. So right now in India, we all know India is not self-sufficient as far as petroleum is concerned. We import petroleum. Sometimes we import it from Iran. Most of the time we import it from Middle East. Right now, in the last 2 years after the Russia-Ukraine war, India, in spite of the sanctions, is purchasing most of the oil from Russia, because Russia is selling India oil cheaper than the international market. In the international market, if you want to buy USA oil, crude oil is nearly $73 per barrel. But if you buy a Russian oil, it comes to $69 a barrel. That is $4 less. Although there are sanctions imposed because the European Union as well as the United States have sanctioned Russian oil, but India has decided to purchase oil from Russia because it is working out cheaper for it. Now, during the summit with Mr. Trump and Mr. Modi, Mr. Trump had enough gumption and enough arm twisting and enough leverage over Modi for whatever reason we don't know. But the joint declaration clearly states that India is now going to shift from Russian oil to United States oil. So now, if you are going to purchase that Russian United States oil, that United States oil is going to come into India. Now, where does it land in India? When you purchase oil from outside, it has to land somewhere because it is crude oil. It comes in oil tankers through ships, and it gets refined in a refinery in India. The biggest refinery in India is the Jamnagar oil refinery complex owned by Ambani. Ambani, as we all know, is not into green energy. Ambani's petrol bunks are every 10 kilometers in India. You will find a petrol bunk of Reliance petrol bunk. So Ambani is into fossil fuels. Adani was into green energy. Till Mr. Trump came into power, the world was shifting towards green energy. That is why Modi ji was betting with Adani. Now suddenly the Trump administration has made sure that nothing doing with green energy, etc. We are going for fossil fuels. And as far as fossil fuel is concerned, the biggest player in India, private player, is Ambani. Ambani's petrol bunks are every 10 kilometers. That is the supply, that is the distribution side. As far as the resources are, as far as the raw materials is concerned, the Jamnagar refinery is the biggest petroleum oil refinery in India, private player. So the issue now is going to, what the problem is going to happen is that till now, Ambani was getting oil from Russia at 72 at $69 and selling it. It's like I'm selling a product for 100 rupees and my buying price is 69 rupees. So I'm getting 31 rupees benefit out of it. 69 is my buying price, 100 rupees is my selling price. So 31 rupees is my profit, that is my margin. But now, because of the US administration pressure, India is going to buy US oil. Now, the US oil is going to come at $73 a barrel. That means now the profit margin is going to shrink from 31 rupees per barrel, $31 per barrel, to now $27 per barrel. So that is going to be a net loss for Ambani, because Ambani doesn't care where the oil comes from. If Ambani is a private company, it can buy oil from anywhere in the world. Right now, it feels that buying oil from Russia is a cheaper version. But now, because of governmental pressure, because of Modi ji's pressure on Trump, Trump's pressure on Modi, and Modi ji yielding, India has to buy oil from USA at $72 per barrel. So that essentially is going to mean that Ambani's profit is going to come down from nearly $31 a barrel to nearly $27. So that is a fall of nearly $4 a barrel. India every day consumes 50 lakh barrels of oil. So calculate it. It means that Ambani right now and in the future, when US oil starts landing up in India, is going to lose 1,500 crore rupees profit every day. That is the mathematics of it. Now, to convince Mr. Ambani that because I've already yielded to Mr. Trump and we are in not in a position to get Russian oil anymore, it has to be US oil, and that oil is going to come costly. Your profit margin is going to shrink. So I think to convince that, Mr. Modi had to go to Mr. Ambani, meet him personally, convince him, and that is one of the reasons he went to a place in Ambani's campus. The strange thing is that the highest constitutional figure of India, the Prime Minister, had to visit a place which, according to law, does not exist. Because according to law, wildlife animals can either be placed in a zoo, or they can be in a circus, or they can be in a jungle, that is a what do you say, wildlife sanctuary, the national parks. Now wherever Mr. Modi ji went, Vantara, that was not a zoo, because in a zoo everybody can go with a price. I can go get a ticket and walk into a zoo. Vantara, nobody, the public is not allowed, so it becomes not a zoo. The second thing is that in a zoo, the cubs of lions and cheetahs don't jump around me. They are in an enclosure away from me. But in the photographs, it is seen that the prime minister is patting the back of rhinoceros. He is playing around with snakes. The lion and the cheetah cubs are playing around with the prime minister. That means that the rule of the zoo, the protocol of the zoo is broken there. So that place is not a zoo. Vantara is not a zoo. Now, whether it is a circus, no, it cannot be a circus because I didn't see the elephant dancing to Mr. Modiji's tune. Neither did I see the rhinoceros or the hippopotamus standing on one leg just because Modiji came in. So that is not a circus, because in a circus the animals dance according to the tune of the ringmaster. So that was not a circus. Now the third is whether it was a wildlife sanctuary. Now, if it was a wildlife sanctuary, how come there is a house there? There is a chair, there is a table, and the wild animals are running around. So in a jungle, you cannot see a house, you cannot see a table, you cannot see a chair. The the wild animals have to be in a wild environment. So there was not a wild environment; it was a human environment. So that being said, that makes it very clear that that place was neither a zoo nor a circus, nor was it a wildlife sanctuary. Yet, in the eyes of law, that place does not exist. But the highest constitutional figure of India visiting there goes on to show that he had to give some kind of message to Mr. Ambani that I am going to take a risk. He did not take just that risk. He even took the risk because the Prime Minister of India or any SPG protectee is protected under certain protocols. Even a human being, before meeting the Prime Minister of India, has to go a particular screening process. His food, the Prime Minister's food, is also X-rayed. Even if I go and meet the Prime Minister, the SPG would ask me not to shake hands with him personally. I cannot touch an SPG protectee. Now, all these things were broken when the elephant was playing around with Modi ji, when the snake was in Modi with in the neck of Modi ji, the lion cubs were prancing around on Modi ji's lap. So, what if the elephant decided to not agree with the SPG and fool around with the prime minister? What if the snake, if that python decided that I will constrict the prime minister, the SPG wouldn't have been able to help. So that said, that that also made sure, that also gives a signal that the prime minister very consciously violated the SPG protocols, also putting himself, when I say himself, it is the prime minister of India, putting the prime minister of India's physical stature at in danger, just because
Absolutely.
he had to convince Mr. Ambani that this is the damage that is going to happen, this is the loss you have to handle, but I'm making sure that I'm doing something for you out of the way. I'm crossing my boundaries, I'm crossing my margins, and visiting a place which legally does not exist. So give me that kind of margin, and please take that on the chin. That the 1,500 crore rupee everyday loss that you're going to incur, please handle it. Please take in the right spirit. I think
No, but
that's what has
you are,
happened.
you, no, you are right when you say that Prime Minister has taken some kind of a risk. Even the RTI, which was filed by Kunal Shukla, shows, and that RTI very clearly says that Vantara is not a zoo. Now, if knowing this, that Vantara is not categorized as a zoo, and if the Prime Minister has taken risk, as what you're saying, then is he forced to take that kind of a risk? Is he deliberately trying to breach certain boundaries to reach out to Ambani's to tell them that look, and one should not forget that Ambani's were present at the swearing in ceremony of the Donald Trump, and whereas our Indian Prime Minister wasn't there. So of course, a lot of equations have changed there, and I believe the Prime Minister understands all of this, and which is why he's forced now to take that kind of a risk to develop his proximity with Ambani's, whether he likes it or not.
Well, I don't know why he was forced, because if USA is forcing us to buy oil, then India's own governmental company ONGC is also capable of refining these kind of crude oils. ONGC is a government-owned company. The Modi ji could have well decided that okay, let me not go to Ambani, let me give this contract to ONGC. Why he did not why he did not favor the ONGC here and favored Mr. Ambani, it is nobody's case. I don't know why that happened, but that clearly seems to have happened. That if India has to buy oil, it's not just Ambani who can refine crude oil in India. There is a Mangalore refinery by ONGC. There are many ONGC plants across India. Mangalore is also a port, so the oil can, rather than come to Jamnagar in Ambani's port and Ambani's oil refinery, the oil could have come to ONGC's factory refinery in Mangalore, on a Mangalore government of India sport, and ONGC would have reaped profit out of it. I don't know why he decided not to favor ONGC here and favor Ambani. Uh, I suspect that there is another angle here, that we all know that when Modi ji went to visit Mr. Donald Trump, after that visit he also met Mr. Elon Musk. We all know that Elon Musk is a kind of a indispensable figure in the new Trump administration. Elon Musk's dream project is his Starlink internet project. So Starlink, he wants to spread internet across the world. There's a huge project of his. And as far as in India is concerned, again, Reliance, Adani is not into internet data. He is not into mobile telephones. But Ambani's Jio is one of the biggest players in India as far as mobile networks is concerned. Be a Jio network, every third person in India owns a Jio phone. He buys Jio data. So I think that I suspect that between in the meeting between Mr. Modi and Mr. Musk, that pressure also would have worked. That we also want from you the data. My Starlink has to have a service provider in India, and since Ambani right now, the Trump administration's two biggest business deals, business interests are fossil fuel, that is petroleum and internet, between Mr. Trump and Mr. Musk. And in India, the only single entity which handles both these things as one is the Ambani family, which owns India's biggest private oil refinery, petrol bunks, as well as India's biggest mobile company, which owns data. So I don't, well, Modi ji could have ensured that the oil went to ONGC and the internet data would have gone to BSNL, both being government of India entities. But I don't know why he decided that rather than going to two different entities of the government, let me make sure that it goes to one entity in Ambani, which owns stakes in both diverse fields. Ambani owns the stakes in petroleum, right from refinery to filling up your gas station in your neighbor through your neighborhood petrol bunk, as well as the internet, that is the geo network. So I think that has played here. There is a lot of geopolitics going on. I think Trump. I also suspect that between the meeting with Mr. Modi and Trump, I think Mr. Trump has some kind of hidden but very strong leverage against Mr. Modi. That is why Modi ji has to agree to almost anything that the USA has imposed on us. In fact, I was surprised that the vegetarian Prime Minister of India in that meeting agreed to import duck meat from USA. Now, duck meat is a very small thing. Uh, I don't know if any prime minister of a nation would do a deal with another prime minister. I agree doing some deal with missiles. I agree doing with some deal with big technology, defense spending, F-35. I can agree with that. But duck meat is such a silly thing. But that also means that there was so much leverage with the United States administration over Modi ji that it had the gumption to get duck meat also involved. Not just duck meat, even cattle feed. Cattle feed. I'm surprised that how can cattle feed from USA come to India? I don't know whether it will come in aeroplanes, whether it will come in ships, whether India does not have enough cattle feed for itself. I think when India has enough cattle feed for itself, but still in that 33 paragraph joint declaration between the United States of India and USA, there is a mention right from missiles to cattle feed and duck meat. That goes on to show that there was huge leverage. What leverage we don't know, but there was obviously huge leverage available with the US administration that they anviled over Mr. Modi ji, and Modi ji has agreed to import duck meat, has agreed to import cattle feed, has agreed to import US oil, has agreed to import Starlinks via Musk, and now he has to give those things to the Indian his friends, and that's why he's choosing the people. Adani obviously is not into petroleum, neither into data. So that thing could not have gone to Adani. Adani's business interests and the US business interests right now are divergent.
Right. So one last question, Siddharth, that what happens to Modi's equation with Gautam Adani there?
I think like a good card player, Modi ji would keep all the cards together. it's like a captain knowing that he has a team of 11 players right now. Whichever player is playing good, he would make him the opener. That does not mean that he is dropping the other players. He's just demoting that batsman, right? He might be he might have been your opener in the last match, but since another other batsmen are playing well, or I want to promote some other batsman, that batsman is getting demoted. I think Adani is still in the team of Adani still exists in the team Modi. It's just that he has gotten demoted, and Ambani has gotten promoted. That's what has
Okay. So
happened.
on a report card, one should understand that Ambani has got promoted and Adani has got demoted on Modi's report card. All
Yeah.
right. Okay. So we'll have to end it here. Thank you so much for an interesting conversation. Thank you so much.